Avengers Endgame. Now, you remember what I said about Wonder Woman, is that we've seen this character being portrayed so many times by the same actor, you feel so comfortable with the character, and they play the character so comfortably. Well, it's the same thing here, obviously, because we've seen these characters played so many times, with these actors so many times. But the thing I want to put a spotlight on is the cinematography and composition, because I realized this is really good. Like, I thought it was just a couple scenes like, oh yeah, the ship's coming through and sometimes I'll have close-ups, but no, it's really, like, it's all really good. And the color grading as well. It's very colorful and very vibrant, except for the end third act battle, which is really annoying. I get why they do it, because essentially what happens when you mute the color grading is essentially you're being able to see more details. The shadows aren't there, but now you can see little things in the background. I get it, it works well when you have a lot of Easter eggs. What happens is the picture's not as pretty. So I think that was the thing that made me not like that third act scene as much as the other movies, even though all the payoff was in that scene. However, the cinematography is way more intimate than other movies. It has more close-ups than any other Marvel movie I've seen. I think that shows of how this movie handles its story. It's a lot more intimate than I've seen any other Marvel movie be. And comparing it with Avengers 1, although this is like blasphemy to other people, I do believe Avengers Endgame is better than the first Avengers movie. There, I said it. Go bash me in the comments section, say I'm wrong, but I said it. Avengers Endgame is better than the first Avengers movie. Pixar's Soul. Now, this movie is incredible, and I think it's my favorite movie of 2020. And I think it's really because of the message of the movie. It's really about enjoying life, not just trying to find the next big thing or trying to become something that you think fits. No, it's none of that. It's just learning to enjoy the little things in life and to just know it's an honor just to be alive. And I think that is so well executed, especially for Disney. Although I gotta give more props to Pixar than to Disney, because this just doesn't sound like a story Disney would want to tell for business purposes. But it makes our world look so much better when in animation. Because if this movie was in live action, we wouldn't be able to appreciate the things. It's only when in a different translation really highlight the beauty of our own world. And I heard a complaint about The Great Before and all the characters within The Great Before, that they weren't really interesting to look at. I think that's the point, because it's a show that we can't just find our passions with ideas. We have to actually be there to physically see, to physically hear. And you can even see this with the lighting. In the lighting of The Great Before, it's all kind of stale and it's called kind of the same. Whereas you see the lighting on Earth, there's shadows, there's reflections, there's very harsh shadows, and there's backlight, and there's just so much more you don't see in The Great Before. If you want to see more about lighting, you should see Thomas Flight's video. It's really good. Shawn Mendes in Wonder. Now, Netflix has been doing this new thing that I think is really cool, but I think has a little bit of problems. It's about putting recent artists on biopics. I'm sorry, did I say biopics? I meant documentaries. But I think it takes the same place that biopics would take, because they're doing a story about a certain artist and their story. And do I think this doesn't fall into the traps that a lot of biopics do, and that they're very formulaic? Because these aren't at all. But I think it has a lot more problems. But I'll get to that in a moment. Now let's talk about Shawn Mendes. Shawn Mendes, just as an artist, just as a singer, his music has gone a long way. His older music, though I still have nostalgia for it, it just doesn't hold up, and there's some technical mistakes. And even if you listen to Treat Me Butter, like, I can't even finish listening to that song. But when you look at his other stuff, they're like instant classics all around. If you've seen his newest album, my goodness, is it really good? It is really good. But when talking about this movie, or this documentary, we get to see he's a different kind of artist than what's portrayed in most media. He's not struggling with meds or with addiction. He's not struggling with pride. He's not even struggling with his identity or his reputation. But he's struggling with his expectation or how people want from him. He's struggling with under-delivering what he wants to accomplish. And he feels like if they realize that I'm human, I make mistakes, they won't want to go to my shows anymore. But then it's awesome to see that he's just a fan, just like anyone else. He just loves music and loves the industry and loves all that kind of stuff. Now, when it comes to filming, this is very intimate of the story. I think it's really good. Just in an artistic point, it's really good. But then it makes me think of different things I just don't like to think about. Like, how did they be able to get these intimate moments and actually be there, you know? Because this is Netflix. They signed on to be part of this movie early on. They had their crew and everything. Like, I think about that scene where they're singing in the bathroom. It's a really good scene, but it's it just feels fake, not because anything makes a show like that, but because the whole point that they filmed it, that was a real scene. Before Midnight. Now, I gotta explain to you this Before trilogy, because I think it's super underrated. Basically, these movies all take place in different decades. Not only take place, but they were actually filmed in different decades. So this is real time. So the first one takes place in their 20s and the 90s. Okay, so they're very young and they meet each other. It's about this rush of connection. It's so beautiful and so fun to watch. The second one is about connecting back to the one that got away and that wish fulfillment, and it's so good. And it also takes place in the 2000s when they're 30. And now this next one plays in the 2010s. And now they're already married and have kids. So what's the issue? What's the conflict? Well, that's the very thing, that they don't feel like they'll stay together. Even though we see this connection that they have, there's this tension of, will it last? I gotta say, this opening movie, from the very beginning, it just hit differently. Because you know how I said about the Avengers movie and Wonder Woman, like, you've seen these characters play the same characters for a very long time, so they feel comfortable in this role. I feel the same way for these characters who play Jesse and Celine. They played these characters for so long that they feel comfortable, and it's much easier to watch, and it's just really fun to watch. But the end, I think, is really good, because, spoiler alert, they do still end together, but it's not the same. It's not how other romance depicts a end of a breakup, where it's like, they do this one grand thing so that they can win back the purse. It's not like that. She stays because after all the things he does and all the things he says to win him over, he says, okay, I'm done. I'm done trying. And she's like, you know what? I still love you, and I'll still try. And I'm not at that point. I'm not like 40 and married, so I don't really understand as much. But that's the thing that makes it beautiful, is that it comes with time and complexity. Dr. No. Now, this series is not necessarily about how good or bad a movie is, well, it's just really about my experience with a movie and how I viewed it while watching it. I gotta say, this experience wasn't really that good. Now, I was watching this movie with my dad, and before watching this movie, we saw a lot of 60s trailers, and it was really fun because, like, we got to see things that, like, we usually don't have up on the screen a lot. Trailers that haven't been in theaters for a long time. It was pretty cool. But when coming to the actual movie, it was actually very boring. That's nothing to do with the actor. I think the actor is amazing. It's probably the best Bond I've seen on screen. But it just wasn't made for a generation like this, a generation like me. When you think of action movies in the 60s or 50s, they are very different from how they're due now. They're much slower. So my experience wasn't that fun. Other than that, I have to say, he's a different kind of Bond, not stoic like Craig, or not just extremely annoying like Brosnan. I like him, he's manly, but he's not older. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. This movie is extremely silly. I love its animation because it's wacky and weird. It's not like Pixar where everything looks very clean. It does look kind of fake. Also, the way it moves. You know, it's really good animation when the gags are the way it moves. And of course, Lord and Miller are to do with its writing as well, because its writing is really good because it does have that depth. It also has that self-awareness to even when they try to do a trope, they'll try to make fun of the trope, not in just like saying it out loud, although they will do that as well, but they'll just show you, like this. Really good, really good. Try it out on Netflix. You guys will love it. "17 again." Now, with a comedy, I always ask, does it make me laugh? And for this one, yes, it made me laugh. But other than that, I don't think it's that special, so I'll only say a few things about it. Number 1, I hate the way this movie talks about nerd culture and what it's like. Number 2, I like how this movie pays respect to Back to the Future. It's still weird though. Number 3, I want Matthew Perry to play Ben Parker in the MCU. Do it, you cowards. Goodfellas. Now, again, this story is about my experience and how I experienced this movie. And I do believe that this was way dragged out and did not work. But that was only really because I was watching this within 9 sittings. Because after that said, this movie moves at a brisk pace, and it's hilarious. It's a very funny movie, even though it's a very serious story. This story shows crime in a way that's interesting. It's basically like We're not bad people, we're just wise guys who knew how to run their lives, you know? Now this movie uses voiceover, like I wish more movies use voiceover. It's simultaneously witty and gives us the right perspective and a nuanced perspective on the character, whereas other movies, they just say random stuff they think is witty. And after watching this, I would have said, oh yes, Goodfellas is my favorite Scorsese film. But then I watched a little bit of The Departed, or in its native tongue, The Departed. This movie has now just become my favorite cop movie and mafia movie. Its cast is stacked, and especially Jack Nicholson in this movie, he's so intense. This is my favorite Jack Nicholson performance. I haven't seen a lot, but so far, this takes the cake. Everybody's good in this movie, especially our two inside men. The lengths they go to try to get what they want, and the way they sort of blend in, makes every scene so captivating. What choices are they going to make? How are they going to get away with this? How are they going to get away with that? And it just keeps that stress whenever you're there, that are they going to get found out or not. So yes, this is my favorite Scorsese movie. The Good Place, Season 4. Now so far this series has been amazing. It's about the afterlife, and it's very funny, very witty, while being very philosophical and being very smart. However, I feel like this season was simultaneously the worst season and the smartest season. I just felt like it got too smart itself, and it started like having some really depressing answers. And I don't mind if a show's ending. I don't get sad when shows end, but this one just made me depressed. All in all, it's still funny. I do think you should watch it, but just be aware that it will depress you a little. Love, Death, plus Robots. This show is so good. I wouldn't really call it a show, it's more like an anthology series, because essentially it's just a bunch of sci-fi short film put into one. But it's incredible. It's probably the best thing I've seen all month, and that's including Martin Scorsese. Yes, people will disagree with me on that, but I'm willing to say it. So instead of just telling you what this show is and just how much, I'm just going to talk about 5 episodes. Again, these are just short films, but these are my favorites. 5. Yogurt. This show is basically what if this chemical reaction made a artificially intelligent yogurt that ended up ruling our world the way it should have been ruled, and then left Earth. It's really good, really funny. 4. Multi-University, or whatever they call this episode. This is just showing what would happen if Hitler died in multiple ways. They would show, oh, then America would be incredible in this way, or, oh, the Soviets would come up, or aliens would come, or rat people, or it just goes on and on. It's crazy, bro. It's 3 robots. This is the first episode, and it just sets the tone. It's very witty in how they portray humanity in the perspective of robots who sort of act like humans. The animation is so crisp, but it's just fun at the same time. And that's all really this episode is, just pure delight. 2. The Witness. This is actually from the same animation that did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, this is so much darker. This is like, has that noir feel while being in broad daylight, has that terror in every minute, and it's just perfect in every way. And number 1, Zima. This is the ultimate story about a visionary artist, and the way the animation is styled kind of seems like very 20s art, but yet ends in a very peaceful and wonderful way. So those are my thoughts about this anthology series. It's the best thing out of everything I've talked about, in my personal opinion. I know objectively Martin Scorsese's stuff is better, but this is incredible, and I love it.